Welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to dive into one of the biggest moments in Apple's Foundation series, the destruction of the Star Bridge in Episode 1. Now, visually, it's an absolutely stunning sequence. I'll give them credit for that. The sight of this colossal structure collapsing onto the planet is epic. But let's be real for a second. Once you look past the visual spectacle, it doesn't really hold up. There are just too many glaring issues that take away from what should have been a moment of real impact and tension. So, let's break down why the destruction of the Star Bridge, while cool to watch, ultimately falls flat when you think about it for more than 5 seconds. First off, the sheer lack of any realistic world building around this project is a huge letdown. The Star Bridge is clearly this monumental piece of infrastructure that connects Trantor to space, and it's meant to symbolize the Empire's power and technological prowess. So, how is it that such an important structure seems to have no real safety measures in place? It's like Apple just glossed over all the practical implications of what it would take to build, maintain, and protect something like this. Where are the security systems? Where are the safeguards? For a society as advanced as the Galactic Empire, the lack of even basic disaster prevention technology is just ridiculous. Let's talk about force fields for a second. In the same episode, we see the Emperor and his clones walking around with personal force fields, this aura that protects them from harm. So we know the Empire has this tech, but they didn't think to put it around the Star Bridge? I mean, come on. It's one of the most critical pieces of infrastructure on the planet. You're telling me that the Empire didn't install a system-wide force field to contain explosions or protect against sabotage? It's something we've seen done over and over in other sci-fi shows like Star Wars and Star Trek. And speaking of basic tech, where's the emergency detachment mechanism? If you're building something that big, you need to have a way to disconnect damaged sections to prevent a total collapse. The fact that the whole thing just crashes down with no attempt to isolate the damage is a major oversight. And while we're at it, let's talk about anti-gravity tech. The Foundation universe is filled with advanced technology, spaceships, nanotechnology, cloning. And yet, when the Star Bridge starts falling, there's no sign of any anti-gravity systems or tractor beams to at least slow the debris. These are technologies that would make total sense in a universe as advanced as this one, especially for something as important as the Star Bridge. We've seen similar tech in franchises like Star Trek, where tractor beams are used all the time to prevent disasters. It's almost like Apple didn't watch any other sci-fi shows when they made Foundation. Now, maybe the point was to show that the Empire was becoming careless, that they were arrogant and overconfident, and that's why the Star Bridge was so vulnerable. And sure, that's a fine narrative idea. But here's the thing. Even if the Empire was careless, we should have seen something, some kind of disaster prevention tech in place. Maybe it fails due to sabotage, maybe it's outdated or malfunctioning, but there's literally nothing. It's like they built this giant bridge and just assumed nothing bad would ever happen. Realistically, with the state of rebellion and instability in the Empire, an attack like this should have been anticipated 1,000 times over. Think about it. Even Sevastopol Station in Alien Isolation would have handled an explosion like that better. At least it had systems in place to isolate damage. The Empire should have developed tractor beam technology to neutralize crashes, something so basic for such an advanced society. It's frustrating because it feels like Apple wasn't interested in showing the realistic implications of building and maintaining such a massive project. They were just focused on creating a big visual moment. And that brings me to another point. This moment lacked real emotional or narrative impact. Yes, the destruction was visually stunning, but it doesn't hit you in the way it should, because the show glosses over the human and technical elements that would make the event feel more grounded. We don't see the engineers or maintenance crews trying to stop the collapse. We don't see the systems in place to protect the planet. There's no tension because the show doesn't explore the real-world consequences of a disaster like this. Imagine if we'd seen people on the Star Bridge scrambling for safety, or if the Empire had tried, and failed, to stop the collapse. It would have added so much more depth to the scene. Instead, it's just a big explosion with no lasting emotional weight. I get that the Foundation universe has restrictions on AI. Spaceships use narrow AI or human spacers, and full-blown AI is banned or mistrusted. But even with those restrictions, the Empire still has to have some kind of advanced tech for things like disaster management. Narrow AI or robotic systems should be in place to monitor the bridge and respond to emergencies. It doesn't make sense for the Empire to be this advanced in other areas, like cloning or space travel, and yet be so behind in something as basic as infrastructure security. They should have had autonomous systems overseeing every part of the Star Bridge. Apple could have used the AI ban to explain why the Star Bridge was more vulnerable, but instead, they just ignore it. In the end, the destruction of the Star Bridge and Foundation feels like a huge missed opportunity. Apple could have made it both a visually epic moment and a realistic, impactful event by showing the Empire's advanced disaster prevention tech at work, maybe failing due to sabotage or negligence. They could have leaned into the theme of the Empire's overconfidence and decline while still keeping things grounded in the advanced technology of the universe. But instead, we got a big, flashy collapse with no real substance behind it. Tony Stark could have built that Star Bridge better, and he would have made sure it didn't go down that easily. So what do you guys think? Did the Star Bridge collapse work for you? Or did it feel like a missed opportunity for better world building? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into sci-fi and TV shows.